The CIA claims torture works. Now, they're talking about physical torture. Now, no-touch torture is a whole new topic, a whole new category. Most people don't believe it's happening. You can be tortured in your own home. No one will believe you. But this is torture, and I want there to be no doubt about it. This is torture, destruction of life, and destruction to misery for all these people. And it's a war crime. It's a crime against humanity for sure. But you know, I really came out to speak because I'm disgusted that this is being done to my own citizens. I did not agree to work on these programs for that purpose. Now, a lot of people are like, well, how can they pipe pains into your head? Remember, we were talking about cloning, brain heterodyning is the actual word, which means modulation of other brain signals within yours. So it's almost like two people are living in the same head. A localized search for that particular target needs to be done first. So a lot of the targets that I've interviewed, they lived in apartment buildings, for example, and then people move in above and beside them, and they can hear large equipment being wheeled around. And so initially, the person's brain print, their particular energy signature, just like a thumbprint or something like that, needs to be collected before the long process of retraining the brain to listen to another human being's brain or a computer.
Okay, so there's a process. So you're talking about the initial process seems to require possibly
a localized
the person.
Yeah, sensor system. Yeah.
A sensor system. So then it's recording that person's data, and that person, the link is being established so that person's brain is sort of getting acclimated, maybe unconsciously to.
Very good. I like that word, acclimated.
And yes, the other. Okay. And then over time, the distance once the target's energy signature is figured out, then it can be done.
Yes, it's irrelevant almost anywhere on planet Earth.
And I imagine you were talking about brain reading just a minute ago. I imagine that over time it would become more easy to read, or easier to read an individual's brain, because their brain patterns would correspond to particular thoughts. Is that?
You got it. Excellent explanation, better than I could say it. So you imagine you have two neural networks, and it's a field of study that I've done quite a bit, and they're trying to learn each other. They're trying to communicate. And well, let me give this analogy. You have a spouse. After a long time, you can complete each other's sentences, and that's the kind of confirmation you're trying to get.
So it's like it grows with you, though.
It grows with you. It learns with you. Yeah, absolutely. And it's also why these experiments are lifelong generally, not always, but this takes time. This takes a computer to actually do the transformation from one brain to another, that every word you say, and then they have a set vocabulary, and they start testing the words out, and then after a time, most human beings have a vocabulary of about 1,000 words, 5,000 words max. Shakespeare had 11,000 words. And once your vocabulary is mapped out, well, then they can put it on the automated mode, what are called chatterboxes, something that I worked on, to keep the human being talking in perpetuation, basically to a machine, thinking it's a real human being. And they do this to scale, automate a lot of the degradation in the torture process, the breaking down of the will. But as well as you need this to keep the lock on of the signal. I mean, if you break the signal in some fashion, music, for example, can do that temporarily, but your brain always goes back to its natural patterns, and so they got you. Once they have your brain patterns matched, they got you. You can't escape that very easily. So they're cataloging and classifying brain patterns, which can be transformed and transmitted into other human beings. So they're testing that as well. And let me give you an example that a lot of TIs go through. They will say something like, "I'm stabbing you in the back. Can you feel that?" And the TI will be like, "Yes, I feel that." And then they'll give it a score. Okay, how much misery and suffering did that cause? And all that's being done is being played back into the brain, the central nervous system. It's not an actual physical touch. There was no harm being done in terms of the physicality of the individual, but they'll go through these like 3 a day different tortures. Okay, we're gassing your eyes with tear gas, and their eyes will actually tear up. There will be a response, and they'll itch and they can't see. But this is all done through the brain. It's the brain's reaction to these tortures that they're applying back to them. We call it no-touch torture, and so the assumption for most human beings, well, if I don't see blood or mutilation, it can't be that bad. Well, what the brain perceives is far worse than that. In fact, the pains are amplified, sensitized, and are extremely vulnerable to these circuits being stimulated. You got to remember, this is called offensive information warfare technology. So it's just like hacking a computer. You are trying to crash that computer. You're trying to crash that human being. And you map out all of the motivations we have, primitive motivations, due to genetics, as well as the cultural motivations. And then you try to manipulate them by messing with those buttons. And that can include altering emotions, which are very important to our behavior. And so they call these emotional signature clusters. And you can read them quite clearly. This isn't classified information. But it's interrogation and torture has a lot of purposes. They're trying to grasp all sorts of data from how effective can we make them kill each other themselves to can we make them do stupid stuff like wrap their cat in tin foil, make them think that the energy is coming from there. I have one interview I had. Man. Well, that's false correlation. And so I try to teach these interrogation tactics to these TIs so they know at least what's going on with them. And one of the techniques that they're practicing is they give a group, and we'll call them the psychic warriors. How's that? We'll call them the psychic warriors. Give them a good name. Yeah. And they're trying to figure out what the bad guy knows, and these are the innocent Americans.
Okay, and the psychic warriors are the DoD.
Yeah, you put names. So. Yeah, that's right. And so the psychic warriors, they want to. They're not given any information, just a little bit about the subject. And the NSA and the other agencies, they have everything about this individual. So they have proof of what this individual's life is about. So these handlers or psychic warriors are trying to get as much information from the target as they can by walking them back through their history. Well, you told us this, we know this about you, and making them erase their memory. These are old tactics. They're used physically as well with drugs and stuff. But this can be done now with this new cybernetic warfare technology. And they try to get every little bit of information from you and find out if it's true. So they get scored on it. Well, how did I do in the end? Whenever the project ends after a couple of years, and they get scored on it. Now, this is called hyper game theory. It goes beyond that. John Nash of A Beautiful Mind, there's a movie about that. He won a Nobel Prize in game theory, which is used in business and is used in warfare quite a bit. Well, it's gone beyond that to hyper game theory, and a professor at Dartmouth has a paper published. People like to understand the mathematics of that. And it's the basic gist of it is to see how do you make someone walk down a certain path. So you're playing a chess game, a multi-dimensional chess game. How do you make a rational player go down to walk them to their death, or walk them into jail, or commit a crime? And so they want to see, out of all these people that we're targeting, okay, the first logical thing they do is go to the police. Well, the police can't help you. They don't. They're going to give you a lockup and 72 hours and a psych ward.
Yeah, I know.
Then they go to the FBI, and there are only maybe a few FBI agents that know about this. This isn't within their classification, and so they do what they're supposed to do, and they write petitions, and they try to write the congressman and president and stuff. And what they're doing is they're figuring out, how do you shut all this information down? What are people going to try so we can shut it down? And this will never be exposed or released.
Yeah, especially if we're talking about doing it without putting someone in a scanner or putting electrodes on their head.
Yeah, exactly. This is over the entire population. And so they're increasing this, and a lot of people won't believe me, and that's fine. But they're increasing this. They are scaling this technology to the entire population. And so it's going, when people are awakened, they'll find out that 1984 did happen. We're actually further ahead.